CEPRAD will not serve, the rubrics on CEPRAD will not fit with what we're going to do this semester. So we will have rubrics designed only for this class. So we're not going to work the CEPRAD, don't worry about that. Probably tomorrow I will send you the evaluation process. All of you will have to send in about 5 to 6 reports, very short reports. And the first one is going to be contextualization. I'm going to explain how you're going to do it. But the first report, you will have to hand it out the second week of May. So every 2 weeks, you will have to send in a report. Yeah. So don't worry about CEPRAD. Don't worry about, profe, la rúbrica dice esto. Don't worry yet because we haven't done that yet. Which means that this semester is going to be a bit easier because CEPRAD was very tough in some aspects, but don't worry about that. So we're not going to work with CEPRAD, and I will send you the rubrics for every single report you have to hand in. And also, the people who have chosen option number 3, which is to do the practicum first and then the hands-on practice, we'll do a different report than those who selected the option of doing an online practicum. Yes, so there will be 2 reports, one for those who chose option 3 and those for option 2, okay? So I will send each one of you, each group, according to what you selected, the report you have to hand in. Is that clear?
Yes. Yes.
Good, good. Now, so today we're going to start with lesson planning, and I want you to hear me very well and focus on this, because lesson planning is quite simply the most important aspect of the intermediate practice. We're going to spend about 4 or 5, even 5 weeks learning about lesson planning, because it's the core of what we're going to do. If you don't learn lesson planning in your intermediate practice, you're screwed. As simple as that. This is the core of what we're going to do. Now, I know that you are supposed to be having lesson planning in EPE. Se llama planificación y evaluación, I guess.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Yes.
because of this strike, I don't know how that's happening, but have you had classes on that or no?
Last week.
Sorry? Now you hear me? My internet was off. So have you had classes of planificación y evaluación?
Yes, but we had like an introductory class.
Yes.
Only that, no more than that.
So you only know like the basic stuff, you know? So you have never done sort of a lesson, a whole lesson from beginning to end in planificación. So what you don't learn there, you're gonna learn it here, because I am very, very smart and I know everything. I'm just kidding. But the goal is that you, there's this 5 weeks of lesson planning, you learn how to create a lesson plan, an excellent, well-designed, well-equipped lesson plan, okay? Now we're going to start. Sorry?
But there are also other courses.
What happened? What happened? Valentina was talking?
Yeah, I don't know what happened with my connection.
Yeah, me neither, girl. Just like, we know that VTR basically,
Yeah.
no one, I mean,
It sucks.
sucks. It's VTR. Jesus Christ. Okay, so we're going to start this class. This class is going to be introductory towards lesson planning. It's going to be more theoretical, and I will give you a little task which is more hands-on. You'll have to analyze some of my lesson plannings that I did when I was a teacher in high school, and you will have to see the mistakes that I made, or what I did wrong, or what I did right, etc., etc. Unfortunately, I don't have all of my lesson plannings because I worked with a platform that the school had, and when I quit, I no longer had access to that platform, but I recovered some of them, so don't worry about that. Okay, so are you ready to begin, to start? Yes, no, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the level of
Yes.
excitement that I like. Yes. Oh my gosh, people. And it is, can someone explain why is it 4:13 and it's dark outside? Girl, Jesus, praise the Lord. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen with y'all now. So we're gonna start with where is it? Here. Now, do you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes? Good.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
today's class is about lesson planning and sort of the foundations of lesson planning, sort of a more theoretical approach, so we can move on into more hands-on approach. My goal is that at the end of these 4 weeks that we're going to cover lesson planning, you will be able to design a well-equipped lesson plan. Yes? Now, so we will talk about CEPRAD and everything else. And also here says CALL, C-A-L-L. We have added a new unit in Practica dedicated to CALL, which is Computer Assisted Language Learning. So we're going to learn how to use Zoom or Google Meets, or how to use different platforms to teach English. We will also discover that sort of at the end of the of this lesson, these 4 lessons. Yes. Now let's start with lesson planning. Lesson planning, here's a beautiful drawing called the lesson planning cycle. Wait, lesson planning cycle. Let's see what happened here. Yeah. So as you can see, the lesson planning is a very mental process. So it's all about getting ready to plan and procrastinating. That's all you do when you lesson plan. So lesson planning, you basically are doing this the whole time. Just looking at everything you have to do, and you go like, oh, qué aburrido, esta cuestión. And then you look at the books and you say, oh, qué aburrido. And then something sparks. Now, lesson planning is not fun at all. It's a lot about thinking. It's a lot about sort of strategizing. So there's a lot of procrastinating, and that's good. Like when your mind goes to other places in your lesson planning, that happens to all teachers. Yes, like there's not, I don't know any single teacher who just sits and plans all the time. We usually sort of look to things, and we watch videos because we want to get inspired by this lesson planning, right? So in the lesson plan, so what is the lesson planning? There are aspects before the lesson planning, which is sort of this inspiration that we get, or seeing the materials, etc., etc. There's the actual lesson planning, and after lesson planning, where I assess how successful my lesson planning was. Now, here is the main sort of aspect of lesson planning. I'm sorry, here, no, this one not. Okay, so lesson planning is both an art and a strategy. So it's an art in the sense that you have to get real inspired with the activities and the videos, and you need to see how on earth am I going to teach passive voice? Like, and there's this sort of this aha moment when you say, I'm going to teach you this in this way. Brilliant. So for example, when I had to teach first conditionals, I was like, what the heck? First conditionals are so, first of all, no one uses them. Like, no one uses first conditional. Second, it goes against every rule they have learned. And third, they're extremely boring to teach. Like conditionals, the most boring ass thing you can teach ever. But when I was thinking about this, I thought, oh, you know, I can teach first conditionals with horoscopes, right? Yeah, because it's about prediction. So if you take, for example, a bath on this day, you will get a date. Or if you put a candle in besides your bed, your future will become better, etc., etc. So there's an art in sort of finding ways in which you can teach something, but it's also a strategy. And I think that is the part when most teachers fail, because at least in our program, we are not taught about strategizing. It's a very like ingeniería comercial, UAI, la estrategia. We see strategy as that. And lesson planning is a strategy in the sense that there is a goal that needs to be met. There is an objective and you need to reach that. So you have to create steps towards reaching that objective. If you do not reach your objective, that means that your lesson planning has failed. Yes? 2, it is both long-term and short-term. That means that lesson planning can be done in a whole year, can be done in, for example, if you take a look at lesson plannings at a government level, they're designed to be changed every 6 years. So every 6 years, they need to rechange some aspect. Or it can be also short-term, class per class, week per week, semester per semester. So it can be long-term and short-term. It is flexible yet rigorous. So it is flexible in the sense that it's just a hypothesis. It's an idea of what you're going to do, right? But it's not written in stone. Like there are many lesson plans, at least for me, I haven't had any lesson plan which I followed to the T, you know? Every lesson plan is different with every class, so you have to change some things, and it's not written in stone. It's very flexible. You can change things. You can say, no, this activity sucks. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. But it's also rigorous in the sense that if you want to achieve a certain objective, you need to follow certain steps. We cannot expect that students go from A to B if you haven't taught them the way. Yes? So it is both planning and assessment. What do I mean with this? When we were at school, or maybe when I was at school, because I'm a bit older than you, what year were you born?
1987.
1997?
Yeah.
1990.
1990? Okay. I was born in 93. That means that I'm 26. So when I was a student, at let's say the year 2000s, you know, chicle miti miti, tatuaje en la playa, trenza havaiana, all that. When I was a student, we always saw assessment as sort of the end of the cycle. So it was class, test, class, test. Yes, that was what we thought about testing and assessment. But in planning, every single step of your planning needs to be assessed. That idea that every few classes you need a test is completely wrong, because planning inherently comprises assessment. And I will teach you how to assess every single aspect of your planning. It doesn't mean that it have to be text. It can be different activities, sorry. But planning is the same as assessment. If you don't plan, you're not assessing. And if you're not assessing, you're not planning. As simple as that. Lesson plan is cyclical, yet hierarchical. it's cyclical in the sense that you start with a certain activity, then you start planning that activity, you carry out that activity, you evaluate that activity, and what you evaluate is the sort of the starting point for another activity. So it's like a cycle, you know. When I guess Brunner talks about el curriculum en espiral. That's what it means. Yes, but it's also hierarchical. There are things that you should do first and second and third. Lesson planning is very structured in that way. So there are things that you cannot do first without the other steps. So now let's see what you said on your survey. So it says, I know how to plan classes in order to achieve a learning objective or learning outcome. Most of you were on the 3, which means that not agree, but not completely disagree. So I guess that some of you had, I don't know, planned a lesson. Have you ever planned a lesson in another class? That's my question. Or no?
Yes.
Yes.
In enseñanzas, we learned how to
Oh yeah,
plan.
who was the teacher in enseñanza?
Benjamin Carcamo.
Benja, obviously, because he's obsessed with lesson planning. And
Yep.
he himself has very good lesson planning skills. So I guess you're in a 3 because you were taught maybe one model of lesson planning, and maybe you haven't lesson planned a whole year or a whole unit. Or
Yes, we learned lots of like about 5 techniques of lesson planning, but
what?
obviously ones like the ones we use nowadays. But just to do a lesson plan, but not, I mean, for one class, but not
Okay.
for like a monthly or a yearly.
Okay, exactly. Gotcha. Very good. Thank you for that. So the second
welcome.
question was, I know how to plan a unit in order to achieve a learning outcome or objective. And here, most of you disagreed. So you either not agree or disagreed or very disagreed. And I think it has to do with the fact that we see lesson planning as something that has to be done day per day or lesson by lesson. But newsflash, people, the schools that plan day per day, is illegal. It is illegal to do so. No one should plan day per day. That doesn't happen at any school because you don't have time to plan day by day. It's only in college we do it because we want to make sure that you understand the sort of the cycle of learning and the strategies of learning. But when you are in a school, you will have to plan either week by week, month by month, unit by unit, or the whole year. Rarely they're going to ask you day by day. So you learned class per class because it's important for us to see if you have understood that. But in the real life, you're asked to do a lot of lesson planning besides the class per class. Yes? Now, it says, I know curricular concepts such as OA, OFT, or indicadores de aprendizaje. Most of you, again, on the 3, not agree or disagree, but there's a large group of you that say that you don't really know these concepts. You should have known them in planificación, but since you're on strike and probably the teacher took a lot of time in aula virtual, maybe you don't know those concepts.
Yeah.
Those are important to know, and we will discover them as well, okay? Now, this is very important. I feel that the classes my professors at ELSL carry out are well planned. Most of you said yes, they are well planned, they're well designed, etc. Who feels like some of the classes are not well planned? Can someone just raise their hand virtually by opening their mics? Can someone say, yeah, there's some teachers who...
I think it depends. It depends on the teacher.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to also sort of say. Who is brave enough to say, yeah, this teacher doesn't have a very good lesson planning. It was very like wishy-washy all over the place. I'm not going to share this with anyone, obviously, but can someone tell me an example of a teacher?
Troncoso.
I'm not
Yeah.
Who?
She.
Troncoso.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? What do you feel in the class?
Tends to waste lots of time.
Yeah. What else?
She's messy.
Yeah.
It was like she didn't plan the activities. Like she thought of the activities in class and she tried to explain those to us, but it was just a disaster. Actually, it was a difficult class for us.
Oh, so there is a term in Spanish that doesn't have a translation, that is el hilo conductor. So how one thing loops to another and another and another and another. I guess maybe you didn't see that. So, for example, when I was in PUCB as a student, we had, I don't know if you still had the class, it was called Introducción a la diversidad en el mundo angloparlante.
Yes.
Yes. So, and the person who taught me this class was Mónica Cárdenas. I remember.
Okay.
And what happened is that as students, we felt that it wasn't a well-planned class, not because the teachers were bad, it was because the topics they were covering were very different. So like one time we saw Australia, and then we talked about the Kardashians, and then we spoke about like the problems of African Americans, and we were like, what is the connection here? Like, what am I supposed to learn? And a well-planned lesson makes you feel like you're knowing what you're learning. So the students a lot of times despair in English and say, no entiendo nada, no voy a hacer nada, because they don't understand what they're doing, the purpose, and how this connects to previous knowledge and what they're going to do later. Yes? So I will agree on that, that for us as a student, we feel that some teachers are very messy because we don't see the connection between the activities. Yeah. Now,
Yes.
here is another good one. I felt that my English classes at school that I went to were very well planned. And most of you said, girl, no. They were awfully planned. I didn't see a connection. Most of you disagree. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think that the school that you went to or the English teachers that you had at your school didn't have very well planned classes? I'm asking for opinions.
Well, basically because in my case, my teacher was awful. So,
but what made her or him awful?
She was like this person that, I don't know how to explain it, but she entered the class and it was like, I'm the boss here. You have to do whatever I said to do. So shut up and pay attention. I don't care if you pay attention. That's it.
Okay.
So, and sometimes she called students like stupid or dumb because they didn't understand something. And also the organization of the class was always to start with something difficult and nobody understands anything, and it was very messy.
Oh, so you felt that there was no scaffolding. So it was like activity 1 and that's it. It wasn't like...
Yes. Like or grammar exercises, tests.
Oh, okay, got you. Did this teacher, either him or her, use a book?
Yes, an Australian book, because she went to Australia to do a degree, and I don't know. I can't remember the name of that book, but it was Australian.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an insight. I'm going to give you all a secret for you. Teachers of English are obsessed with following the Cambridge or the Oxford books. There are even teachers who don't listen. All they do is that they say, go to page 1, then page 2, 3, 4, and that is the lesson plan. The lesson plan is
Yeah.
exactly the same as the book. And many teachers do this. They feel like the book that is given to them is their lesson plan. And what happens is that books are not designed with the Chilean curriculum in mind.
Yeah.
So you feel like there was no connection between activities, and sometimes you will like present simple, and then you have like another topic, and then like present perfect, and then any or some, and then like how to tackle this task, and you're like, wait a minute, what are we learning here? And the problem with high school teachers is that most of them use the book as something sacred or something holy that you need to follow. No, when I was a teacher, I never even used the book because I like to plan my own things, and then we will see the sort of the order in which you select things. Yes. Now, lesson planning is key in the classroom. Most of you agreed, and that is the truth. I said it's an art as well as a practical thing. Without lesson planning, without a successful lesson planning, it is impossible for students to learn. Yeah. I know how to create a class from start to finish. Most of you agreed. I think that you have more of a grasp in the terms of I know how to plan a lesson rather than a unit or rather than the whole year. And here 3 words that you think describe a good lesson planning. You always said time. You thought about, most of you said about either having well learning objectives or sequences that you need to follow. Another things mentioned were about organization, engaging, something that you also suggested about, again, the purpose, the organization, about having like clear steps, right? So that's what you said. Now, are you seeing the PowerPoint presentation and me both at the same time or no?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
good. So here's when sort of the real content comes. So you should write this. You should. What should we pay attention to? So the first thing we need to pay attention to are the national documents, the written documents. So we have to pay attention to all the objectives in the planes and programas. We have to know them and have the book by hand when we plan, because without those, every lesson planning is meaningless. You need to know those. You need to know, for example, that OA stands for Objetivo de Aprendizaje. OFT, Objetivo Fundamental Transversal. So you need to know, in terms of government documents, what is there available. Yes? So you need to know them and have them. And when you're a teacher for many years, I taught for 4 years in a high school. I learned them by heart. So I know that OA1 is in relation to reading, and OA4 is speaking like that. Yeah. And you also need to know the school that you worked at, what kind of lesson plans does it have? There are many ways to plan, and you need to know what type of lesson planning is going to be asked. Yes. Now, you have to also take in consideration the student's context. So for example, the schedule is very important. If you have 2 classes a week, imagine you have 1 class after lunch. It is a nightmare. After lunch classes should be prohibited. Like, you don't understand. Like, even I, as a teacher, I feel like exhausted, and the lasagna is hitting me right here, and it is a mess. So you have to think about, okay, if I have, for example, a class after lunch, I have to make activities that sort of fit that schedule. If I have lesson plans that at the end of the week, for example, Friday, the last hour of Friday, I have to create activities that sort of put students working, right? Or if I have a class after physical education, what do I do? Yes. You have to see the available material. What kind of books do they use? How is the classroom? What are the spaces? The number of students, things like that. And you have to sort of assess who are your students, what is their behavior, what things they like and don't like, the level of English, what can I expect from them. So all of these things you have to put into consideration. Yes. Now, here's the important thing. What are the differences and similarities between a lesson plan and a unit plan? Tell me, what do you think are the differences and the similarities between a lesson plan and a unit plan? I'm waiting.
Maybe a class plan is more detailed than a unit plan?
Yes. Good. Very good. Someone else? Difference between lesson plan and unit plan? Again, I'm not moving on until someone else has an answer.
Maybe the time. For a unit is a lot of lessons, and we have to have more time.
Exactly. What about the objectives? Are sorry, my connection is unstable. I'm going to wait. Now here. So in terms of objectives, are the objectives of the lesson plan and the unit plan the same?
No.
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 No. Because a lesson plan, day by day, sort of leads to a unit plan. So many teachers say, when they plan a lesson, they say, no, but this is, van a aprender a escribir textos. Yeah, but that is a unit plan. Lesson plan is the steps that you need to get to that unit plan. So the objectives are going to be different in lesson plans and units. That is the main difference here, on also time, etc., etc. Now, important things to consider. First is this, is that a class is based on input and output, and input always goes before output. So your input in your classes needs to be meaningful, comprehensible, and needs to be understood. And your output has to follow sort of the same rules. It needs to be meaningful, comprehensible, but also you have to be given feedback to. And in English, this is especially important. Why? Because in one lesson, you can practice both. Or you can create arcs of classes, 3 classes of input, and then they have to create. It's up to you how to decide that. But your lesson plannings always have to include an input or an output. If it only has input, that means that your class is very teacher-centered. And if you have only output, that means that your class is not scaffolded enough. Yes? So always think about that. Lesson plannings, there should be a space for input and a space for output. Now, here we have the sequences. I think that you learned this with Benjamin, or no? PPP, ESA?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So, just to, these are proposals. Yes, these are not written stones, these are just proposals. The PPP sequence is the oldest one and the most basic one, called presentation, practice, production. Now, it says older sequence, yet mostly used today, doesn't take a long time to plan and implement. That's very true, it's the easiest one to sort of write down. And the structures may get very repetitive. So when you use PPP every single class, students are like, ya sé lo que hay que hacer, profe va a poner un video, no va a decir que hay que hacer oraciones y después lo vamos a decir en público. Yeah. PPP has that disadvantage. It can be very repetitive. Now there's another sequence called ESA sequence that is engage, study, and activate. I like this one better because study can mean many, many things, and also activate can mean a lot of things. Because activation is not only production, it can be an array of things. And I like this one better also because you can rearrange the things in the way that you want to. For example, here we have straight arrow. So for example, ESA, you follow the same sequence, E, S, and A, or it can be a boomerang. ESA and your activation can also be the engage of another class, and then you study, and then you activate, and that same activation can be the engage for the other class. Yes? Now, and this is new content, so please, please, please write it down. So when we have sort of 5 skills actually in English, which are listening, reading, speaking, writing, and sort of grammaring. This hidden one that is the knowledge about grammar. Now, when you plan an activity, for example, of teaching speaking, here is the cycle that you need to consider. Are you seeing the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
So we will also explore this in Didactica, but I want you to write it down because it's very, very important when you lesson plan. So first, you focus learners' attention on speaking. That means that you say, okay, students, we're going to practice some speaking activities, we're going to do this and that, etc., etc. So you focus your learners' attention onto that. Why? Because speaking is very, very complex. So you need to sort of isolate speaking from everything else and make them understand, okay, this class or this activity is speaking. So focus on that. Then you provide input or the guide planning. So you said, for example, if you're going to discuss about global issues, you do a class on global issues and you provide the vocabulary and expressions. Then you conduct the speaking tasks. You say, okay, we're going to do a debate on global issues, and you conduct the speaking task. Then you focus on language skills and strategies. Okay, to conduct this, you will need these strategies. You're going to plan first, then you're going to rehearse, and then you're going to do this and that and that. Then you repeat the speaking task. Okay, so we did the task, now you fix it with all these strategies, and now you have to repeat it. Then you direct the learner's attention, reflection, and learning. So what did we learn today? What did you improve on, etc., etc. And then you facilitate feedback on learning. So for example, okay, this group did very well because they did this and that. And this group was very good, for example, at grammar. And this group was very good at accuracy. And this other group was extremely good at, for example, at, I don't know, vocabulary. So this is a cycle of teaching speaking. Yes, you don't come to class and say, okay, class, today we're going to create a presentation. Half an hour. No, you need to follow this cycle. Now my question is, how many classes do you think this cycle would last? Can we do this in one class?
I don't know. I think it seems like detailed for one class. I don't know. It's my perception.
Yeah. So yeah, I want you to see it in this way. Speaking, when you're planning or doing a lesson plan for speaking, it cannot be done in one class. As simple as that. How many classes do you think it will take? Just give a number.
I think at least 3.
Yeah, I would say the same. At least 3 or 4 classes. So you will take 2 weeks, for example, in just one speaking task. Now, the good thing about lesson planning is that we have step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But in between 1 and 2, you can also put, for example, a listening task that will create more input, for example. And between step 2 and 3, you can put, for example, a worksheet so they can plan better. So This cycle are the steps, but in between steps, you're free to sort of put little steps in between to scaffold from one step to another. Yes? So that is about speaking. Now let's check about writing. If we are going to plan or to create a lesson plan based on writing, here are the steps. So there are pre-writing, during writing, and post-writing activities. So in the pre-writing, for example, you set the purpose and the purpose and the audience. So you say, for example, today we're going to write a letter, a recommendation letter, the purpose and the audience, to one of your bosses. Okay, I know the audience. So you say, for example, and you say to your students, what words can you use in that letter? So since it's a presentation letter, they can say, oh, what you're good at, your abilities, your skills, etc., etc. Then you talk about the form. Okay, a letter looks like this. It has these parts. You haven't written anything yet, but you're doing all the pre. Then you go into writing. How you're going to organize the letter, in what voice or tone you're going to write it. The word choice, the sentence fluency. So you see, for example, commas and dots and the vocabulary. Then you go into responding. Responding means that either appear or you see your text in regards to your oh, sorry, there were so many questions on the chat. I couldn't check them. I'm going to check them later. Sorry. Yeah, so in responding, you sort of assess yourself in regards to the organization. Then you revise. Okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Then you edit your first letter, and then you public or share. So that is sort of this cycle of written production. So there's something you have to do previous to writing, during writing, and post-writing. So there is an organization part, a writing part, and a revising part. So again, how many classes do you think it will take to teach writing or to create a text?
4 classes? 4, 3?
4, 3? Yeah. I think that the one that takes the longest time is going to be speaking. Writing, you can do it in 3 classes or even in 2 classes with all this cycle, and you will do it perfectly. Yes? So think about at least 3 classes for teaching writing, especially with little children or 8th graders or 7th graders. They need a lot of these steps. Yeah?
Okay.
Yes?
Okay.
How do you do it when you have different English levels in one course and they're all are supposed to have different speaking levels or writing levels, and you need to level them up or make them equal, but one of them is going further than the other? How do you manage that?
Oh,
no, in order not to get them bored.
Yes, and that is a very, that is something that teachers struggle with all the time. A good technique is when you, for example, assess these processes, every step or every arc, either pre, during, and post, can have a grade in terms of what they did, but also in terms of how much they advanced. So for example, if a student is very, very bad, for example, at speaking, and he doesn't have all the points for fluency, for example, he can gain points in the sense that, did he work this class? Did he revise? Did he clarify, etc., etc.? So you assess the process as well as the production. So for example, you have students who are very good at English speaking, for example, but if they don't follow the process, they have a bad grade. And when you assess the process and the production, at the same time, you level things up because you gave the chance of students who do not know much to follow the process and have sort of the same grades as the other one. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, so always try to assess the process and the production, not only the production, because that will scare students and say, ah, no sé nada, no voy a decir nada, entonces me saco el 2. But if you teach them, okay, if you don't know how to speak or how to write, follow the steps, because in every steps I'll give you a grade. And I will assure you that you'll feel more confident when doing so, and they will be leveled up with those that have sort of a different level. Yes? And I will teach you also in the lesson planning how to plan with that in mind, because there are different types of lesson planning. Okay? Now, here, why is this not moving? Okay, here. So this is approach to reading. You should have read this on your last semester. I'm hoping for a yes. We know about
Yes.
this. So there's the cycle of reading called pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. So in pre-reading, you contextualize, you use skimming or scanning, you activate previous knowledge or informational processes. Then in the while reading, you can do a summary, information gap, Q&A. And then the post-reading, you answer questions, you create something else. You create a discussion about the text. You create an analysis about the grammar within the text. Or you can extract one section of the text. Okay, from this section, what do you think about blah, 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 etc. This is approach to reading. So if you're planning a reading task or a reading class towards reading, how many classes do you think this takes, reading?
1 at least.
Yeah. So reading, comprehension skills have a shorter arc than productive skills. Productive skills, you need to create a lesson planning for 3, 4 classes. Reading can be done in just 1 class or 2 classes at the most. So reading, that's why teachers always suggest reading rather than writing, for example, because it takes less time, yeah? So when you plan reading, try to think about half of the time that you would spend writing. And the approach to listening, here it is. So again, there's a pre-listening, a while listening, and a post-listening. In the pre, you create inferential process, you activate background knowledge, you use visual cues, you contextualize the video, you said vocabulary, for example, in this video, these words are going to show up. What do they mean, etc., etc. They're going to be sounds. So for example, you're going to hear a lot of this sound, 13, 11th, for example. So they get accustomed to the sounds. In the while, you can ask per time. So you stop the video and say, okay, what happened here? What happened here? Information chart. So what are the characters on this video? What did the woman said to blah, blah? You fill in the gaps, you start up and predict. In the post, you can do true or false. They can react to the video, create an opinion about the video. You can check the grammar of the video. You can create questions and answer or another follow-up listening. So again, this will take a little less time than writing and speaking. But why am I showing you this? It's because if you create a task, you need to sort of follow the steps in your lesson planning. You cannot do a class where they only do a pre-listening. You have to complete the cycle for students to sort of acknowledge that they're learning something. Now, in this theoretical background, we're seeing this sort of spread out, separated. But remember that these 4 skills can happen in interaction. So for example, when you listen to something, you can, okay, you show them a video and you talk about the video, etc., etc. And then, for example, they have to write about the video. So you integrate listening with writing. And once they wrote their reaction, they have to discuss with a partner. So they're in speaking. So all of these four cycles can be intertwined with another. So don't feel like one lesson has only about listening and other class only about speaking. They can happen, they can interact among each other, okay? Now, here is another thing that you have to write. Please write this down. We're talking about the hierarchy of planning. So planning goes from the biggest set of planning, which is year, then semester, unit, and class. So what we're going to cover here, we're going to learn how to plan a class and a unit. Year and semester is going to be for your final practicum, so wait until that. But we're going to learn how to plan a unit and a class, which is very, very important. There is a hierarchy. Now, this is the most important part. Now, when you lesson plan, many teachers think about this. I'm going to act. I'm a teacher at a school. They say, ay, me toca con el cuarto C. ¿Qué puedo hacer con el cuarto C? ¿Qué puedo hacer? Ya, mira, les voy a hacer una guía súper entretenida acerca de la parte de lo auto. Ya, y esa es mi clase. And they do that. The teachers usually think about the activity they're going to create or what book can I use. Now, can someone tell me why that is incorrect?
I don't know. First, I think you're leaving outside your students' interests.
Yeah.
Because like you can just create an activity like from I don't know where to your students.
Yeah, so you're basically like saying, ya, ¿qué puede ser? Ah, tengo una guía guardada en el computador del año pasado, ya voy a usar esa nomás. Yeah? Many teachers do that. And what is the problem with that? Is that lesson planning has a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So activities or sequences are the last thing you think of. First, you need to think about the learning objectives or the outcomes. So for example, here are you seeing the two pyramids, sorry?
Yes.
So this is the pyramid on this side has the words, and here has an example. So for example, when you lesson plan, you first think about the objectives. Don't think about the materials or the activities, nothing that. You think about, what do I want my students to learn? For example, students analyze the form and function of present simple in an analytic manner. That is my outcome. That's what I want students to do, to learn, right? Once you think about your outcome, you think about the indicators, lo que se llaman indicadores de aprendizaje en el Mineduc. So an indicator is, how do I know they reach that objective? It's a very complex thing, word to think. So objective, what do I want them to do, right? But the indicators is, how do I know that they reach that objective? So for example, if I want students to analyze the form and function of present simple, I know that they achieve that because they are able to come up with answers using present simple. So there's an objective and there's something that indicates me as a teacher that they reached that. Many teachers confuse objectives and indicators as only one. No, the indicators are different. Indicators are tangible, things that students do. Yes, while objectives is not, it's not like, oh yeah, they analyze form and function of present simple, but how? How do I know that? So the indicator is always, how do I know they reach their objectives? Is that clear? No? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. So once you thought about the objective and then the indicator, then you think the assessment. So you said, okay, I want students to achieve this. How do I know if they achieve this? Because I have this indicator. How do I assess that indicator is the assessment. So I'm going to create a worksheet where students come up with answers using the present simple, and that's how I know that they analyze the function of present simple. So you think about the objective, what do I want them to do? The indicator, how do I know they achieved that? And the assessment, what tool do I use to know if they achieved that goal? And then you think about the activities. Okay, so if I'm going to create a worksheet where they have to prove that they have learned the concept present simple, okay, so we're going to watch videos, we're going to analyze text, and they will have to discover the form and the function. And then you think about the materials for those activities. Okay, so I will need a video, a worksheet, and I don't know, a test. So what teachers do usually is that they focus on the activity and the sequences, and then they figure out everything else. But that is wrong. Why? Because you have to always think about the objective first, then the indicator, then the evaluation, then the activity, and then the materials. So in Spanish, they explain like this. ¿Qué quiero lograr? ¿Cómo sé que lo lograron? ¿Qué herramienta uso para saber si lo lograron? Los pasos para que lo logren y los materiales para que lo logren. That's how it explains it in Spanish. So what do I want them to achieve? How do I know they achieve that? What instruments am I going to use? What steps and what materials? So always think about in this upside triangle. First the objective, and the last thing you think about are the materials. That's why maybe you felt at the school that the teacher was messy, because the teacher always used the book, the Oxford or the Cambridge book first. So the pyramid was upside down, right? So the teacher thought about the materials, and then about the activities, and then the assessment, and then the indicators, and then what they're going to learn. So that is wrong. You always have to think from the objective to the materials. Yes? Clear?
Yes.
Good. So please write this down because it's very, 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 very important, people of the world. Now, I'm going to show you, if this computer allows me to. God damn it, I hate when technology is not like, oh my gosh, why is it not working? There we go. Okay, no, not that. I'm going to show you, what the heck is the girl? Okay, yeah, here. I'm going to show you lesson plans that I had when I was a teacher. So are you seeing the word?
Yes.
Yes, good. So it says, this is the model that they use at my school. Subsector, Inglés, Unidad 3, the Arts, Horas Semanales 4, we had 2 hours, 2 blocks of 2. Mes Agosto, Primero Medio. I was the head teacher of Primero Medio, so I planned for, we had 9 Primero Medios. So I did them all by myself. So again, first you think about the objectives. First the objectives, always the objectives. Here, this is a lesson plan which was done week by week. It's not lesson by lesson. So instead of putting the lesson by lesson objective, we put the objectives of the week, yes? And these were taken from the Ministerio de Educación. Then the contents. So for example, the content of this class was vocabulario temático unidad, descripciones técnicas, descriptivas en presente simple. Situación de aprendizaje. Dice, se comienza mostrando un video art contemporáneo llamado The First Kiss. Entonces, actividad número 1. Frente al video se discute sobre qué es el arte contemporáneo. Se construye colaborativamente un vocabulario de contemporary art versus classic art. Se muestra un video de kids art o modern art y los alumnos juegan a adivinar. Se practica y se explica la técnica de preescritura de pirámide invertida. Los estudiantes describen otras obras contemporáneas. So what do I have here? I have that students are going to watch video, they're going to discuss about art, they're going to create a vocabulary about art, and finally they're going to describe a piece of art. Here are my objectives. Estos son mis objetivos, ¿no es cierto? My indicators. How do I know that students achieve the objectives? Through the indicators. Entonces, ¿cómo sé que ellos pudieron utilizar las palabras de arte y pudieron describir algo de arte? Por esto. Los alumnos identifican las palabras correspondientes al arte. Los alumnos pueden redactar un texto descriptivo simple usando técnicas de escritura. So my indicator was that students are able to write a short text regarding art. While my objective was different. My objective was to demonstrate comprehension about art, etc., etc., etc. But how do I know they achieved that objective? Through the indicator. Then we go into evaluación y tipo de instrumento. Ejercicios y timbres, evaluación de proceso. Recursos, pizarra, plumones, cuadernos, data y notebook. So this is very, very simple. Now take a look at the second week. So again, the second week has the same objectives. Now contents, el contenido de la clase. Lenguaje descriptivo, técnicas descriptivas, presente simple, lenguaje de opinión. Entonces, ¿qué voy a hacer yo? Dice, se muestran diferentes ejemplos de arte contemporáneo, video art, installation, intervention, sculpture, fotografía editorial. Se realiza un juego de copy versus original. Los alumnos tratan de describir las obras mostradas en diferentes modalidades, con diferentes niveles de dificultad, demostración, práctica guiada, práctica independiente. Se discute sobre la importancia del arte como expresión del ser humano. Now, how do I know they did that, they achieved that? ¿Cómo sé que lograron eso? Through my indicators. Entonces, ¿cómo sé que lo lograron? Porque uno, identifican diferentes demostraciones de arte contemporáneo y sus características. Describen obras de arte usando el vocabulario dado y las palabras técnicas aprendidas. Aplican técnicas de comprensión auditiva y textual. So, my objective is all of this, as you can see. It's very, very long. Yes? But the indicators are shorter, and they allow me to know whether they achieve something or not. Yes? Now, take a look at this other lesson plan. This lesson plan that I have here, in any moment. Now, here, do you see this different one? Class?
Yes.
Now, this lesson plan is done by a crazy ass teacher. Because this lesson plan, girl, this is hilarious. So all that you see here are only 2 classes. No, this is 1 class, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost 6 pages to describe only 1 class. Now, you're not going to do this in your classroom, but I want you to see this. He did the same thing that I did, but with another sort of style. So again, the objectives, OA1, el OA7, OA8, objetivo de la clase, actitudes, indicadores de evaluación. How do I know if they succeed? ¿Por qué? Porque dieron su opinión acerca de los textos leídos, compartieron experiencias personales relacionadas con los temas escuchados. So you have all the indicators here. And then, inicio, desarrollo, y cierra. Someone spoke to me about different levels, right? Who was that person? Someone?
I think it was Montserrat.
Montserrat? Yeah. So
Yes.
Montserrat, as you can see, in every lesson plan, there's something called focalización or DUA. Do you know what DUA is? Not Dua Lipa, DUA.
Yes, we know.
Yes.
Okay. And do you know who Dua Lipa is, right? I guess.
Of course.
Of
Okay.
course.
So here, there's always a part in your lesson plan when you say what you're going to do with those students who are at a lower level of English. So, for example, dice, una vez que visualizan el video, el docente les realiza preguntas a los estudiantes con respecto a sus gustos y preferencias, donde hace énfasis en que se le indique a los estudiantes las estructuras respectivas para poder expresar y preguntar dichos gustos y preferencias. So here in this part, you put what you're going to do differently if, for example, the lesson plan fails, if a student doesn't understand, if you have lower students, how is the activity going to be different for them? So in this part, in focalización or in DUA, you put what you're going to do differently. Yes? Here. No, I'm sorry, I forgot. So that is the part when you put that. Now, here is another lesson planning. Again, has the same. Objetivos de aprendizaje, contenidos, la situación y los indicadores y la evaluación. So always think about that. A lesson plan needs to have all of those. Now, remember also this pyramid. It needs to be from the top down, from the objectives to the materials. If you first think about the sequences, I bet that your lesson plan will be awful and you will feel like you're in Troncoso's lesson, where you don't know where you're going and you don't know anything about it. Yes. So this is the sort of the core of this. I need you to understand this hierarchy. Why? Because next class you are going to start to sorry, I can't find myself here. Stop here. Yeah. So next class you're going to start to doing your own lesson planning, and I'm gonna give you each one of you, for example, a different class. So for example, Sebastián, primero medio, Alejandra, segundo medio, Monse, cuarto medio, René, cuarto medio, Valentina,
Anything.
séptimo, things like that. And we say, okay, unidad número 1, tu unidad número 3, tu unidad número 4. And you have to see the indicators and the objectives and the materials, etc., etc., following that hierarchy. Yes? So,
Yes.
can someone tell me, to finish this up, can someone tell me what is the first part of the hierarchy? I'm waiting.
The objectives and outcome.
Objectives and outcomes. Then, the second part.
Indicators.
Indicators, exactly.
Oh, la cabeza, man.
Oh, la cabeza. ¿Quién dijo eso? Okay. Third.
Sorry, it was my sister.
Tell your sister to shut up. No, just kidding. Okay, third, sorry.
The assessment.
Okay.
The assessment, right? Fourth.
Activities.
The activities. And last.
Materials.
The materials. So always think it in a V shape, an inverted pyramid about lesson planning. So again, is lesson planning flexible or strict?
It is flexible.
It is flexible.
It needs to be flexible. How many cycles of learning did we study today?
4.
4, 3,
Four.
3, 4.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We saw the cycle of what? Of
Speaking,
speaking,
writing,
writing,
reading,
reading, and
listening,
and listening.
which takes the longest?
speaking,
Speaking?
Speaking. Very good. Can I add activities in between the steps?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Should classes be separated in skills or intertwined? Anyone? I'm moving my eyebrows to see if someone answered. Should activities be separated by skill or intertwined?
It can be mixed, I think.
It can be mixed. Don't think about a lesson plan only for speaking and only for writing. That doesn't work in the real world. Okay. And lastly, last question that I'm going to create. When you evaluate the success of a lesson plan, whether the lesson plan worked or not, what sort of part of the pyramid are you going to sort of watch? If you want to say this worked and this didn't, what part of the lesson plan?
Yes.
Exactly, Macarena, the indicator. The indicator is key, because if the indicator is not met, that means that the objective is not met. Yes? Always think about indicator. If students didn't achieve the indicator, therefore they did not achieve the objective. Yes? Now, it is already, yeah, we have 2 minutes left. I don't want you to have more waste time. Okay, so I will upload the activity probably tomorrow that you have to do. I know that in Taller de Práctica, we don't have sort of it's not mandatory for you to have like activities every single class, because it's a taller, it's not like Didáctica that has activities. But I want you to check some examples of lesson planning and see the indicators, see the objectives and how they're sort of put. Yes? Next class, we are going to start planning a lesson. I'm going to start by objectives, indicators, activities, etc., etc. And then we're going to move into planning a unit. Yes, so first class and then unit. Are we clear with that?
Yes. Professor, I have a question.
Yes, Valentina.
Are you going to upload this class?
Yes, I will upload it because I'm recording it. I'm going to upload it to YouTube, so you can check it. Okay. Are there any doubts?
Because I had problems with my connection, so it was lagging.
No, me too. So like, who hasn't? Like, does someone have Movistar? I want to know.
I do.
Is it better or worse?
Huh? It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's shitty as well.
I think this is my theory. I guess that all companies are the same and have the same antennas and everything. Just different names. I know, that's my theory.
They do. It's like only one company have those, and the other companies pay that one to use it.
So basically, Illuminati confirmed. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here in this, I have a question.
Yes.
Here in the
I have a question.
Tell me.
If we chose the second option and regarding our practicum, is the university, I mean, like the people in charge of practicum, of all of the practicums, who are going to tell us which school are we going to attend to?
Yes, you should write Enzo Pescara about it, so they can assign you a school. And all of us, including you, all of us will have a call meeting. So we're all going to learn how to create classes online and how to have like a vast knowledge on platforms to teach online. So not only you, but everyone. But you should definitely write Enzo Pescara.
I just write him and I tell him that I have chosen, that we have chosen the second option and we need a school. Just that.
Just, yeah. I'll let you know that we are this group from Professor Javier Cáceres, and we want to know about the possibility of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because your immersion week is going to be in a month, I think. So we have basically a month to teach you about lesson planning.
Okay, thank
So
you.
don't worry about that. Yes? Any more questions? No? No?
No, I think it's all clear.
Good. So I'm going to upload this to Aula, and I'm going to give you sort of the task that you have to do. It's not mandatory. It's only for you to understand and see and sort of get the idea of lesson planning. Okay? Good?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we will see each other next week, I guess. When is the voting for the strike? Friday?
I don't know.
Porque decía que
I don't know.
era la votación era semanal, ¿o no?
I don't know.
Ujú.
Si ustedes van a la UCACHA.
Pero creo que hay asamblea o nada que ver.
¿Qué?
Que hoy día hay asamblea,
Sí,
pero no sé
hoy día hay
si
asamblea.
Ah, ya.
Pero asamblea de inglés, ¿no?
Sí, de
Ujú.
inglés.
Y la de la federación era los viernes en mi época.
Sí, creo que igual son los viernes.
Sí, ¿cuál es los viernes
Tenemos que
ahora?
tener la votación antes del viernes.
Digo, porque necesitamos el respeto.
Probablemente,
La cosa es que...
probablemente sea mañana la votación.
Ah, ya. Sí, eso lo comento a algunos compañeros que vamos a ver qué onda con didáctica, porque, para ser súper sinceros, estoy recibiendo caleta de presiones en cuanto como, ay, la nota y la clase, toda la parafernalia. Entonces vamos a ver bien el tema de didáctica, el tema de las notas y todo eso. ¿Ya? Voy a esperar la segunda ratificación
Ujú.
de la federación para ver qué onda. Porque igual, eso es lo que yo hablaba con mis otros colegas de la universidad, es que nunca en la vida se había visto, eran casi 6.000 estudiantes que votaron por paro. O sea,
Sí,
nunca
nunca.
se habían visto 6.000 votos en ninguna parte de la universidad. Entonces, claro, hay que ver ahí qué onda y qué pasa para
Ujú.
para llevarnos bien entre nosotros, la verdad, porque yo, con la gente de arriba, mis jefes, no, eran mis profes también, entonces no tengo mucha relación con ellos, tengo más relación con ustedes que con ellos. Así que,
De todos modos, nosotros como instituto han tenido como una una respuesta súper respetuosa igual dentro de todo el paro.
ujú,
Pero el drama al final no va como con el instituto, sino que va como con el tema de los aranceles y eso ya va mucho más allá de las unidades académicas y todo.
sí, nosotros la reunión que tuvimos con René decía así como, nosotros inferencias sobre los temas de eso, de verdad que tenemos nula, o sea, nula. Y con suerte, por ejemplo, no sé, pues, tenemos ayudantes este semestre, cosa que antes no teníamos. O sea, si la universidad le cuesta soltar 45.000 pesos, que es lo que le pagan a los ayudantes, imagínense bajarle la arancel, ¿cuánto le costará? Pues, ¿cachai? Son cosas que hay que discutir. Eso, voy a esperar la respuesta de la federación, a ver qué onda, qué pasa, y vamos a ver qué pasa con didáctica. La cosa es que tienen que hacerlo de didáctica sí o sí, eso debe ser evaluado sí o sí. El tema que hay que hablar es bien cómo lo vamos a evaluar, si es que vamos a dar más tiempo, si es que lo puede hacer online, bla, 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 cómo vamos a ir con las clases, pero la nota va sí o sí. ¿Sí? Para que le digas.
Ujú.
¿Estamos entonces?
Sí.
Ujú.
Sí, me cansé de hablar en inglés ya, la verdad. Ya, eso. Que estén súper bien entonces. Nos vemos. Bye.
Chao.
Chao,
Chao.
chao.
Chao. Yo, profe, cuídese.
Ustedes también.